Skinheads, sex crimes, and deviant footlust. I do not want to drive your car, Brutus. It's disgusting. Flies swarm the thing, for God's sakes. I've never seen anything like it. It feels like I'm driving around in a corpse. Which would be wild. Brutus, give me your keys. Don't deny me this one thing, Brutus, you son of a bitch, please! In one of Ron's trademark flip-flops, he adamantly refused to do me a favor by driving Alan to the doctor's, then proceeded to immediately beg me to let him take Alan to the doctor's. I had gone so far as to grant him permission to set out on his own adventure while he waited for the hoglet, but nothing was good enough for the Hog King when his mind was made up. Typical, ignore context and fall back on hardline biases. When I was done bitching at Ron about hardline biases, he gathered the boy along with his medical dossier and plotted a course to the clinic. After the preliminary noise, nurse questions, vitals, height, weight, etc., Alan sat and waited for the doctor, who seemed to walk in mid-sentence, reading the boy's chart. He dove right in and asked if Alan had used any illegal narcotics recently. The smallish monster informed the doctor that he had been poisoned recently, and asked if that counted. The doctor was clearly caught off guard by Alan's claim, as well as his apparent indifference to it. I will look into that. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, did you say that you were poisoned? Alan Curtis gave an affirmative nod. Really? Like, really poisoned? He nodded, still. Someone poisoned you. That's a trip, huh? The doctor excelled deeply in disbelief. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Geez. I feel awful making you relive it, but I want to ask you some questions about your experience. Alan Curtis joked. You feel awful? How do you think I felt? Well, horribly, I'd imagine. Was it an accident or something? Nope. Just pure hatred, I guess. The doctor was beside himself. I bet. I mean, they hated you enough to poison you. That's some shit. Ring, ring. Hello? Oh, yeah, he's right here. Hold on. The doctor handed his earphone to Alan Curtis, who looked concerned as he reached for it. He used his hand to cover the imaginary receiver and silently mouthed a question. Who is it? Doctor, deadpan. It's serious. Alan let out a great belly laugh. Oh man, you had me there. I thought it was the guy who poisoned me looking to open up another can of whoop-ass. Now they shared the laugh, and the doctor looked at him tenderly, not like a lover, but like a mother looking at her child. This exchange went on for some time. Okay, back to business. Wow, so you were poisoned. Okay. Alan composed himself, and after a moment remarked, To be honest, I didn't even know they did that anymore. It was as if the doctor was waiting for the appropriate time to bring it up. Right? No offense, but were they, like, Russian or something? Like, some Ruskies? I really don't have a clue. The doctor elaborated on his theory. I mean, they still pull those kinds of stunts. You hear about it on the news and stuff. Alan admitted, Well, I can't hear much since the poisoning, and the doctor just stared at him in quiet amazement. You are quite a little trooper, do you know that? Alan showcased that seldom-seen modesty for his new pal. That's just how I'm living. I bet. Well, you know what? You passed. I've heard enough. You passed whatever test we were set to run here today. Alan couldn't believe his semi-operational ears. Really? I just feel so bad for you, you know? Pity, next to love, man's most easily exploited weakness. Rock me, I'm a deist, thanks! The doctor got serious and lowered his voice, moving in a little closer to share this info. Hey, don't mention it. Really, don't. I would lose my license in a heartbeat for this kind of shit. I've already been told that if I keep it up, I'm getting my practice taken from me. Alan touched his nose with a grubby index finger and zipped his lips with a wink. While he was wrapping up his appointment, Ron was behind Pizza Destiny, hoping to land some of that street rat hands-on kind of shit that he was always going on about. My money says that phrase describes some sort of sex act with a homeless woman. Ron was fingering through a totally barren wallet, spilling unused fast food coupons onto the concrete, speaking fast about pointless things in an effort to divert the attention of the prostitute he had picked up. In diverting attention with small talk, some dirtbags could calm their marks, but it takes finesse. Ron has no finesse. With no money to speak of, and a worker who had dealt with her fair share of grifts, Ron's back was against the wall, forcing him to resort to the only thing he really knew: raw seduction. He was a beast at heart, and by appearance, and he embraced that most primal of human urges. So you're saying the smell of semen and farts isn't enticing to you? An interesting starting point. I would not have led with that, but this is Ron's game. The lady, who was stationed on one knee at the crotch of Ron's maternity pants, did not look like she was having a good time and carried herself with the impatient annoyance of a Wall Street trader losing nanoseconds on stock info, not a tweaker working for a fix. Though in the hierarchy of society, I guess the two are pretty similar, relatively speaking. Are you kidding me? No, not in the least. Yuck. I don't have time for this dog shit. You have money or what? Rondella seemed to ignore her and slowly, methodically, continued to look through the various scraps of non-monetary paper occupying his wallet. Holding something up to the light, he examined a receipt that lost all the color in the print. Fascinating. Accepting this venture was a lost cause, wasted time. The gal blew an exasperated breath through clenched teeth, trying to contain her frustration. Yeah, well, you know, them's the breaks, right? Fair enough, yes, but tell me something. How about this? Rondellis liberally applied body spray to his genitals to the point where the hooker was covering her mouth and coughing. He let out a fart that was a lot more violent than anticipated. It was one of those terrible slide down the crack and clap out from between your thigh and testicle kind of farts. The flatulence carried with it such clout that it blasted the hooker in the face with the body spray and fart cocktail, temporarily blinding her. She yelped and buckled, pawing at her eyes in agony. "Aw, man, that was the last of my fart spray," quickly correcting himself. "Body spray." He stared impatiently at the hooker, who exhibited signs of anguish. "I get it. Ouch. Are we going to hit this or what?" She tried to look at him, but couldn't open her eyes. "I'm not going to. No." He offered up a bulletproof counter. "Come on." "No, never. I'd rather die." "That's a bit extreme, but I bet this broad is a bit extreme. I'll allow it." Appealing to her free-spirited wild side, he attempted a playful, "Come on, let's just get crazy," but the hooker stood her ground, and the answer was a firm no. Rondellis was nothing if not gracious in defeat. "No? Fine, beat it. I need to go pick up my retard friend anyways. Thanks for nothing, idiot. Thanks for wasting my time." Rondellis was nothing. On the way home, he tried to explain street smarts to Alan, who was obviously lost in the conversation, thinking Ron was talking about Street Sharks, one of Alan's favorite shows coming up. They stopped at a big box retailer so Ron could show Alan a thing or two. While they stood in line, well within earshot of the cashier, Ron suggested that Alan watch and learn as the sensei asserted his intellectual dominance over this nobody. Holding a large vacuum up at his chest, obstructing his sight, he was unaware of the cashier who was looking right at him, heard everything he said, and was rubbed the wrong way by that nobody remark. Naturally, Alan Curtis had no idea what was going on and incorrectly predicted that his buddy/nemesis would put on a clinic, a bloodbath even. The cashier scanned the barcode on the side of the box, and it rang up at $149.99, immediately calling Rondellis to action. "Whoa, whoa, whoa, excuse me?" The cashier presented a face wiped of any emotion and spoke in monotone. "Sir?" "The tag says $19.99. Read it and weep." "Yeah, somebody, I'm not pointing fingers, just stuck a clearance sticker over the barcode. This vacuum obviously isn't $19.99. We can't sell it at that price." Ron cranked up the machismo. "Oh, you can, and you will." He turned his attention to Alan. "Look, Alan Curtis, I've got this coward reeling." Alan was sweating badly. "Closing for the kill, Daddy." The cashier maintained a cool disposition. Yet another mindless bad decision. "Sir, I'm sorry, but we can't." Rondellis channeled his inner Razor Ramon and got real greasy. "Look, I can tell we're both educated. We both have degrees here, Poppy." In total confusion and frustration, the cashier contended the fatso's baseless assumptions, stating that he was only 16, but Rondellis continued as if the boy hadn't interjected. "The difference is my degree is the 3rd degree. In judo. Black belt, you toad. You care to step outside and roll? We can. FYI, I will kill you." Fear guided the young man's actions, his hands trembling above his head, his voice now subject to a slight quiver. "Whoa, listen, there's no need for any of that. We just can't sell the vacuum for $20, that's all." Rondellis dismissed the argument entirely, countering with something airtight. "These are just numbers you're throwing my way, man. They're all relative in God's eyes, at least. What's the difference between one number and another, really? Airtight." The cashier responded with answers grounded in reality. "My job, my livelihood." In that purely Rondellis way, Crass belligerence, mindless insensitivity, and a sickening detached indifference to humanity, the fat asshole set down some truth on the poor lad, letting him know, in God's eyes, that's all horseshit, man. For what it was worth, the kid cut his losses and tried to wrap up the conversation. Listen, I can't change prices that are this drastically off. I'm sorry. Everything is set in stone in the system. Rondellis blew a raspberry. Computers, am I right? The boy was officially curt. I don't know. Are we done here? Again, Ron directed his attention to Alan Curtis, shrugging his shoulders in theatric confusion. What does that even mean, Alan Curtis? Please leave. In all his naivety and confusion, Alan gloated. Now we're getting somewhere. Rondellis spotted a few uniformed goons power walking in their direction. And there's security. Turn around and walk away, Alan Curtis. I shouldn't even be in a place with this many minors. Move. They fled the scene, pocketing several dollars worth of snacks on the way out for good measure. Idiots. The security team quickly gave up their pursuit, just happy to be rid of the two. They drove into the early evening, lights from other cars washing red and gold over the electric pink of the sky's reflection in the windshield. It was Alan's night to get dinner, so they stopped to pick up some chow from Chicken Sanity. Ron was feeling hot and confrontational, and fired off on some poor old bald-headed Asian guy. They just grabbed their chow and were approaching the exit, when about 10 feet away, a guy just minding his business and made the mistake of crossing their path. Ron. Whoa! Watch it, Alan. I don't want you to walk into that big nasty skinhead. The old man was obviously confused, but was fairly certain that the attack was directed at him. Excuse me? Rondellis deliberately ignored the guy and talked to him through his exchange with Alan. This coward lives his life, spewing hatred, then has the nerve to big dick around this restaurant, intimidating people with that superior tough guy bullshit attitude. Extreme. The old man was certain there had to be some sort of mistake and just wanted to make peace. I'm sorry. I don't know what I did to upset you, but I'm sorry. Rondellis focused his attention on the oldster. Oh, you know, I figured since you demand an all-white America, you probably demand the right of way as well. I'm sorry, but I really think that you're mistaken. Right, because your word is cleaner than mine. Purer. You make me sick. The old man finally got upset. Who are you? Rondellis stepped up and into his enemy's face. I'm your worst fucking nightmare if you want me to be. I can be your worst fucking nightmare. After being asked to leave, Rondellis drove home erratically and vented his frustrations to Alan Curtis while showcasing his wholly inaccurate understanding of the law. Do you believe the way that girl talked to me? To us? Sir, I have the police on the phone. They said they know exactly who you are. Sir, they're telling me I should tell you to run. They sound pissed off. Bitch! Over it! Getting off topic. In all fairness, though, it's a collector's item, but the Historical Society, scoff, those fat cats want nothing to do with me or my kind, you dig? That's not a collector's item. That belongs in an evidence locker somewhere, they say. Here's the thing, though. It's a little-known fact that after you get registered, you don't get in trouble for this shit anymore. It's just a given. It's like you are who you are, and all those involved wear it like a badge of honor. Like, ew, I saw that guy on that online registry. Yeah? Well, that guy saw me butt naked twice and once on the toilet through a hole in my ceiling. That's nothing. That freak cornered me in a dressing room, showed me pornographic photographs, and groped my breasts and penis several times. I guess you could say I'm a bit of a star fucker. That type of thing. But never like this. Even with a Puerto Rican guy calling the shots at the apartments, they can't turn a blind eye and put me on the lease. Most places, they don't open their doors to people like me. Alan Curtis sat wide-eyed and silent for some time. Yow. Hey, can you drop me off up here? I need to pick up some essentials. Ron became irritated. Alan Curtis, we were just at the store. The boy started to tear up. Please let me out. Not looking for another case, Ron took caution and met demands. Geez Louise, victim of a violent sex crime, 1 second, I'll let you out at the light. Alan scurried across the cracked and weed-infested parking lot blacktop, stopping only to catch his breath and a few times to spit up some vomit. He just wanted to get away from whatever was happening in that car. When he got to the store, he ransacked the sports drink aisle, looking for some acid berry blast, his favorite fuel, but struck out. He was forced to seek the consultation of a professional. Eugene? The clerk looked bothered and responded with a false grin. Close. It's Sean. What is it, Alan Curtis? Eugene, where's the acid berry blast? Sean/Eugene appeared somewhat stunned. He asked Alan if he watched the news and was greeted with a blank gaze. He told Alan Curtis that his acid berry blast had been pulled from the shelves, prompting a little piss, a little vinegar. Well, I would be pulling it from the shelves and pouring it into my face if it was here, but it's not, Eugene, you moron. Infinitely patient Eugene. No, Alan Curtis, it was recalled. That stuff was proving fatal when they tested it on chimps. Didn't you hear about all that? Alan Curtis let the idiot in on the truth. As the consumer, it's not his job to know what Acid Berry Blast Inc. doesn't feel it is necessary for him to know or not know, and it's not his fault that those chimps couldn't hang. That stuff was proving delicious in Alan's motherfucking gullet. Now, didn't Eugene hear about all that? Alan, you should go see a doctor. Those chimps lost their hair, got dysentery, and died. Disregarded entirely. I was just at the doctor, Eugene. He said that those symptoms, those exact symptoms that you just named, were likely the result of a recent run-in I had with poison. Eugene remained calm. Yeah, Alan, the poison was probably the acid berry blast. That stuff is literally poison. Slowly, things came into focus for our young Alan. And it's killing chimps, huh? Nature at its finest, Eugene? Top of the food chain and all that. The boy with two names correctly shot down Alan's bullshit. I don't think that's right. Listen, this conversation, as far as I'm concerned, isn't right. Just point me in the direction of the shampoo and the crapper's delight. I think there must be something going around, because lately this... He lowered his head, revealing the crown of his skull. His scalp was bare and covered in sores. He pulled a mound of hair from his pocket and tried futilely to reapply it to the bald spot. After several failed attempts, he dropped his shoulders while still bent over and shrugged, shaking his head. He was at a complete loss. This isn't right. He released a wet fart. Oh, and another very wet fart. Ooh. He whispered, "Easy does it." Alan Curtis, did you listen to anything I just told you? Without warning, the boy lost it and attacked poor Eugenio. If I spent my time taking orders from losers, I'd be working as a box boy at a value time jamboree, wouldn't I? That's not the life for me, Eugene. Maybe you. After giving Eugene the once-over and grunting through a crazed buckshot fart, he confirmed his suspicion. Definitely you, but not me. Now, if you'll excuse me, he turned to leave, revealing a ghastly brown stain on the back of his pants, leaking down his leg. There was a sizable brown puddle at his feet, and as he turned, he slipped in it with a loud squeak, but caught himself before falling. There's a spill there. You should get that cleaned up. What kind of place are you running here, Eugene? He walked away in an overly dignified manner. You've really got to clean up your act. Still hot off the acid berry blast fiasco, the boy got back to the apartment and went off on a good one. It was on this night that we finally learned the origins of Alan Curtis. I started off in Baker, romping aimlessly around the desert as a pup. Upon reaching sexual maturity, I was introduced to hallucinogenic drugs by some cave dwellers who rode motorcycles and ate human flesh. I found myself out in Downey with a head full of acid and a hunting knife and figured I'd make the most of that experience. When the killing could no longer finish what I had started, I decided it was high time to head east. Wound up in the Appalachians with a group of indigenous pagans that taught me the ways of the land. I taught them the ways of the sword. Then I started running with some Albanians. Thinking back, feelings were still raw. Not a good idea. Notice this eye patch? 2 fake names, 3 socials, and a trip to Vacaville later, and here I am in beautiful Hemet, California with you 2 fruits. For a moment, no one said anything. I think it was a time of processing and reflection. Rondellis offered up his 2 cents before I had finished digesting my portion. This explains so much. And then, as if by the flip of a switch, just as shit was really getting interesting, the 2 were off on an entirely new topic. Hey, remember when we used to beat up on that Filipino kid Alan Curtis? Flip him over and shit? That was all we had back then. Alan Curtis was tickled by the memory. It was all we needed. I felt the need to cut in here. How old was that kid? Alan Curtis guessed 10? 11? But Rondellis, for once, was a little more rooted in reality. More like 6 or 7 if he was a day. The boy was quick to concede to the facts. That sounds about right, yeah. I honestly didn't understand. They physically bullied and insulted a child. I understood that, but why? How long ago was this? You're both adults. Rondellis, like a real idiot, like an asshole, hotly countered. In some states, Brutus, in some states. I responded in the same stupid tone, but with a little more anger and condescension. In all states, Ron, in all states. You're like 40. The fatso took a moment to reel, and when the action died down, Alan's attention was redirected to the nearest and most lurid stimuli. Noticing a pile of mail on the table, he waddled over to the dining room and rummaged through the small stack. Jackpot! His latest issue of Teen Cream magazine arrived. He squealed and honked with perverse delight. Ron and I took notice, and I'd venture to say it was for two very different reasons. Alan was high energy, positive vibes, and Ron, officially out of his brief slump, was running hot, celebrating with the boy the arrival of some real sick smut. Real sick. He stressed that. With a sinister chuckle, he hissed his approval at the boy, who danced and grinded on the furniture, shouting for the world to hear, "This shit got me in rare form!" Rondellis relished the moment. Oh, me too, Alan Curtis. I knew that you'd come around, my boy. The dark side, it's so sweet, it's like honey on my fingertips. Alan Curtis, mindless, clueless, eagerly flipped through the pages, finding something of interest almost instantly. "Oh, cool! The Judas Brothers!" Rondellis responded like a parent cheering on their child, opening a birthday present. "Oh, cool, Judas Brothers! Do you see this, Brutus? The boy is a freak. You're a freak, Alan Curtis. You just jumped right into the deep end, no questions asked. Mad Dog, that's your name. That's what we're going to start calling you." He rubbed the little goblin's back and gave a very unsettling leer as Alan looked through the magazine, utterly oblivious to the man and his deviant intentions. I had seen enough. "We're not doing that, Ron. Alan, let me see that magazine." Rondellis went all prison bitch on me and started shouting, "Wait your turn, pig! I called Nexties. You heard me, right, Alan Curtis? I called it fair and square. Just squash it, fool. I don't want beef with you, fool. We're family. Let's just squash it." Rondellis, shut up. "AC, what's this magazine all about?" He lit up. I wanted to hear about his stupid crap. "Oh, you know, the usual, teen heartthrobs." Rondellis muttered in a throaty, husky way, "Go on," and began to unbutton his blouse. Alan Curtis went on. "Boy band stud muffins." Oh my God, Brutus, make him stop. "No, wait, don't." Alan really was in rare form. Remember the Coreys? Well, these are Coreys for my generation, Coreys of the 21st century. Real role models for real kids, like me. Why? I was honestly relieved. "It's not important. Enjoy your magazine, Alan Curtis." In return, Alan Curtis mocked me. "Oh, I will, because you're so jealous of me right now. It's so pathetic." Rondellis soothed the boy's inflamed emotional glands and talked him down off of whatever the hell that was. "It's okay, Alan Curtis. Just focus. Turn the page. Very slowly." I tried to talk some sense into the bigger of the freaks and was told that a feast was a feast, and also that I was an elitist. I spit my response, though I knew my words would mean nothing to him. "You are everything that is wrong with humankind in one body. Do you know that?" Alan Curtis was confused. "It feels like we're having two different conversations." Looking through the pages of that magazine and seeing all those beautiful faces, Ron realized that he was not living up to his full sexual potential. He decided to kick it up a notch cosmetically and turn to that place Muscle Divas Inc. he had seen on the boulevard. The following week they penciled him in for The Works, and accordingly he went and did work. He thought that he looked great. He knew that he felt great. Maybe positive changes were coming. He twirled into the apartment with arms in the air, only to be met with a dark piece of his past. Alan Curtis had unearthed a hidden gem. Rondellis wrote a self-help book. The cover featured Ron wearing a woman's sports blazer, pleated slacks, and clappy shoes, leaning against the title with arms crossed and a confident smirk. The book, Sass with Class, The Story of How I Got Here, by Rondellis Toei, with a foreword by Cynthia Blanco Redmond and Lindsay Ortega, was called Weird by the New York Times. Ron's spirit was broken. He felt dead inside, and it only felt right to kick him a few more times while he was down. I like letting Alan handle the real messy shit, then I sort of humiliate the remains. Also, the landlord put a notice on the door to say that you're not doing that big stick thing anymore. Graphic and very upsetting were the words used to describe your application. And that was all it took. Ron and his world were shattered to pieces. He had officially been popped for holding the apartment's first ever Big Stick Submission tournament. He was ousted by his friends for writing a shitty book and looking like a moron. And he wasted the last of his bankroll on a makeover that, to be fair, would have looked great on a normal overweight woman, but Ron was no ordinary overweight woman. Also, in case you were wondering, the Big Stick Submission tournament was just as bad as it sounded. Rondellis wasted no time enacting Plan B, desperation. Were you planning on signing up? We can still do it in the apartment, Alan Curtis. Gross. I want nothing to do with your sexual escapades. I didn't want to let that one go. That's escapades, you dud. He disregarded me and my facts supremely. Rondellis wouldn't drop the horrible deep throat game. So is that a no? Alan Curtis wasn't finished with his fat foe just yet. I would rather read your self-help book for women. This was happening. What's that supposed to mean? Alan Curtis got cocky quick, and things usually go to shit when he's left to think on his feet. It means that your writing style stinks like Ray Liotta's dong. Any hope for peace was dead. Ron was ready and waiting. Maybe his dong stinks so bad because he's always nuts deep in some piece. I looked back to Alan Curtis to see what his rebuttal would be, but all he could do was gnash his teeth against a tightly clenched fist. Rondellis won that round. Unfortunately for Ron, that victory would be short-lived. Alan Curtis was a master of passive-aggressive retaliation and showcased his talents with a classic apology letter later that day. Ron, dropped a deuce in your filing cabinet. Hope it's no biggie. AC. Rondellis Tohi was not happy. He stood in the doorway of my bedroom, twirling the boy's letter in the air, forming loose figure eights with his movements. Do you believe what that fat little chinchilla did to my cabinet? I let him know that I was on his side. Smelling was believing. But frankly, how did he not see it, or something like it, coming? I mean, we know the boy. We know how the boy works. He looked defeated and only shrugged before completely changing the subject. Oh, remember my band? I recalled some band that he was in and asked if it was the same one where the guitarist pistol whipped the keyboardist for no reason one day. Literally no reason. No one could figure it out. It was brutal. The poor guy slipped into a coma. He was left in Toledo. He would have wanted it that way. I asked if he was from Toledo or nearby. No, but we were stuck there and we weren't getting any younger. God's will paved the way and saved the day. They just let you leave your keyboard player at some hospital in Toledo to die? Rondellis wore that puzzled expression of his that made me think of a bear struggling to use an abacus. Hospital? I quickly initiated mom mode. Ron, Jesus, what were you guys thinking? His response was quick and came from years of experience, addiction, and pain. It was 88. Anything went when you were West Palm Beach sleaze. Haven't you ever seen old episodes of Cops? I had nothing to combat the specimen. Ron, what are you doing in my room? Get out of my room. When you have nothing, attack where you have something. Alan followed the sound of voices, grazing Ron's arm as he entered. Rondellis naturally was beside himself, wheezing, I cannot believe that thing just freaking touched me. Alan loved to play the innocent party. He was conscious of the fact that he had recently defecated in his roommate's furniture, yet he found his way to asking Ron, with his face blank and childlike, what's eating you? He plopped onto my bed only to receive a reprimanding point and a stern stare. No furniture for Alan Curtis. Ron took the bait because Ron is dumb. What's eating me? Alan Curtis, my filing cabinet is filled with feces. Oh, that. I muttered, Jesus, under my breath, and Ron aggressively rubbed his temples. Alan Curtis defended his actions by stating, Hey, give me a break. I'm still reeling from Tuesday, okay? Ron asked all the big questions, the heavy hitters. What the hell does the junkyard have to do with you attacking my filing cabinet? I was out of the loop, clearly. What happened at the junkyard? This past Tuesday at the junkyard, Alan Curtis got into it with some dude named Jonathan Jackhammer. I grabbed my head and ran my hands slowly through my hair, looking wide-eyed off into space. I needed a minute to process all of that. Who are these people you hang around with? These animals? I was cut off by a borderline indignant Alan Curtis, who let me know that the guy was strictly a rogue, not one of ours, and that also I should get my facts straight. Rondellis fact-checked the fact-checker. We are not on the same team, you and me. I think we are. A loss of will and energy. Brutus, lose this idiot. I gave Ron the rundown. Alan Curtis was appointed to me through the courts as part of some crude human cash for clunkers program. All I knew was that this critter was from the desert and smelled like real shit. As much as I'd like to, if I got rid of him, I'd get rid of all the benefits that he comes with. His presence is a conditional nuisance I accept in exchange for my free room and board. Alan, with his higher rank in mine, asked, "Yeah, what do you bring to the table, Ron?" Trapped, the fattest of the morons, tried to change the subject using seduction. I've got a lot of hair on my body. Well, had a lot of hair on my body. It's all gone now, except for what's up here. He pointed to his disgusting head of nap. Alan Curtis wasn't sure how to respond. Okay. Care to see just how hairless I am, Alan Curtis? Care to see all that I bring to the table? I'd had enough. Ron, get the fuck out of my room. He gave a weak chuckle and pathetically slithered back into the hallway out of my sight. I asked myself out loud the way people do, "What's wrong with that guy?" And Alan answered, "He's big and raucous and sassy like a buffalo with a perm." I patted Alan on the back, genuinely concerned for the little guy and his brain, and asked if he was doing okay. Incidentally, Alan Curtis was not doing okay. A daily tick check revealed countless bites of unknown origins, and when I asked around, I found out that the neighbors' pets and toddlers had been ravaged as well. Alan roughly fell under the household pets and toddlers banner, so I took the concern to management. We wound up crashing at the motel across the street from the apartments while the complex was tented and bug-bombed. Alan and I got into Ron's PCP and made a mess of the pool area while the maids cleaned our room upstairs. Alan walked around and punched all the furniture while I peeled away the label by the jacuzzi, warning that people who have suffered from diarrhea within the last 48 hours should not enter. We were sweating profusely, and Alan had been crying but was currently and quite visibly trying to contain laughter. Why on earth does Rondellis use this stuff? It's awful. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm loving it, really, but it's awful. I tried to respond, but by then I was gone. There was part of a chair under the umbrella that we had ripped out from the table, and I was sitting on it. I remember intense concentrations of energy radiating from my head, chest, and crotch, wafting up toward the maid's cart upstairs. I rubbed a clenched fist until it was red and raw and gritted my teeth, causing two to crack. According to Alan, I was in another world, a violent one. In my mind, the sounds of crackling flames and distant explosions could be heard, along with the anguished wailing of women, probably the maids. Every man has his vice, Alan Curtis. I thought about my last statement for some time. Silence and tension filled the gated pool area. I repeated myself. Every man has his vice. I want to say that I publicly masturbated 6 times that day. There were people talking a few times. I could hear people talking. I don't know if there were crowds or just passersby, but there were people in the immediate vicinity while I masturbated at least a couple of times. Long story short, people probably saw my wiener there. A few days passed, and we were cleared to go back to the apartments. Ron was downstairs arguing with the owners of the motel over some billing discrepancies, or as most people would describe it, trying to sucker his way out of paying for all the porn that he had watched. Alan and I waited, bags packed and ready to go, looking out over the partial courtyard and driveway of the luxurious East Inn. Admiring the dead, humid landscape, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure down the road riding a bike in our direction. He turned into the motel and made his way toward the office. "John DeViti! Myth! Monster!" I shouted down and startled the old lowlife, who looked thrilled to see a face he knew. After catching up with him briefly, I learned that he had gone out to Corona to help a friend. He was back in town to gather some supplies and check on his affairs, so I invited him to stay over at the apartment with us. No need in wasting money on a room. Our furniture is smeared with just as much blood and semen as this place, believe me. Ron strutted out of the office with his shirt ripped and his eyes swollen. I think I made my point. We made our way back home with a new addition and a lot of lost time to catch up on. I sat and marveled at this living legend, this piece of shit. I opened up. Sometimes I sit and think, and what I realize is that I don't want this. I want what you have, you know? Is that crazy? Well, People think that just because I'm with different girls all the time, I must have the greatest life. They think that sleeping with countless babes must be the best. And it is. There wasn't any more to that thought. I waited for it and expected there to be, but there wasn't. But what? But nothing. Oh, believe me, that's where my statement ended. 3, sometimes 4 different chicks per week. Per week! That, all on top of my number one who's bi and down for like anything. Believe me, it is the greatest. Pfft. But? What are you, dumb? Are you gay? But? He continued to cackle as I dragged myself back from the abyss. Good talk, John. He responded obliviously and with a warm smile, happy to help a friend. Oh, you know it. Anytime, man. As we wrapped up our chat session, Rondellis waddled into the kitchen and cornered Alan, leaning in close, whispering info, giving him the goods. You do know, for my Shasta McNasty tapes, I will be coming down on you harder than ever before. Alan readily admitted his guilt and accepted his fate. I think I was kind of asking for it. What with a jig like that? With a jig like that? Yeah, you bet your ass. Ron was furious. Alan Curtis wanted to maintain good vibes, pleasant relations, nothing more. Oh, I know. Rondellis was not interested in peace. Rondellis wanted war. Oh, I don't think you do, Alan. The jig is up. Tell me about it. Heavy exhalations followed, an action universally recognized as indication that one was giving it their all. This lad was giving it his all. Ron was seething and trembled as he inched ever closer. Oh, I will. Over and over again. You think that you're funny? Huh? Alan tried to avoid eye contact, but Ron squirmed his body, locked in Alan's line of sight. You think you're a fucking clown? Alan Curtis attempted a response. No, Ron, really, we'll see who's a fucking clown. We'll see who's a fucking clown. I walked in on the two, face to face, Alan getting his throat squeezed. Ron quickly flipped his internal switches and loosened his posture, even giving his little buddy a noogie. The fear in Alan's eyes told me everything. Naturally, I pretended not to notice because I don't care. Everything cool? The aggressor spoke. Oh, you bet, bud. Hey, does John know what's wrong with the internet? It doesn't sit well with me, it never has, when someone like Ron acts courteous, genuine, civil, whatever. You know there's a problem. When I was young, I was eternally hopeful that every time a scumbag did something decent, they were coming around, ready to change. Given it enough time to observe a sizable cross-section of people, however, the only thing that changed was my outlook. Experience came with the recognition and understanding of lies and stinging betrayal. Luckily, I fed it right back into that pig. Warmth, kindness, friendship. He could suck my dick. Well, the issue probably isn't with the network. He says that there's something wrong with the computer itself, a corrupted or missing driver probably. He was not about to give up. He thought for a moment. Restricting our access to smut really pushes him into action. Eureka. My guy, Bruiser Dick, owes me one. We can get this taken care of for free. False demeanor or not, I was relieved to hear it. I asked him to give Mr. Dick a call. Sure thing. 1 sec. Ron directed his attention once more to Alan Curtis. Do you know anything about drivers? Alan Curtis thought about it. No, I don't have a clue. Ron was quite pleased. No, you don't have a clue. Looking back at me, he confirmed. Yeah, Brutus, I'll give him a call. Let me find his number. I stood there in the kitchen alone with Alan Curtis. Looking at that fat little freak looking back at me, I immediately felt anger and looked away. I relished the idea of Ron terrorizing his stupid ass just before I had walked in and interrupted. Alan, when Ron's done, I need you two to run to the store and return the modem. I'd guessed that Alan would be crying when he got back, but I never checked his cheeks or the neck of his shirt for evidence upon return. Why can't anything be easy with these animals? Ron lit up some cashier who refused to take the modem back because it looked like people had been chewing on it. He really let her have it, and she really didn't care. Read your own policies. I'm entitled to a full refund. Alan, here, read this, since Tammy is a goddamn illiterate, apparently. He shoved the receipt in Alan's face. Here, what does that say? What does that look like to you? Alan really focused for probably a good 5 seconds. Crinkles? Ron spoke from a place of disbelief and disgust. How poor is your vision? Alan could only shrug apologetically. Rondellis the fatter returned his scorn to Tammy, the cashier. I would like my motherfucking money back, please. She looked up to the ceiling. She took a deep breath. Breathing out deeply, she did not want to engage. You're a real vulgar piece of shit. She engaged. Ron spoke through gritted teeth. Don't tell me what I already know, limp dick. Money, now. The girl, about to snap, relinquished. You can wait for my manager. That wasn't good enough, apparently. Alan Curtis, you carry pepper spray, don't you, for various dealings? Alan was caught off guard by the question and had to clarify the role of the spray before answering. I carry pepper spray. It diffuses situations and eases hostilities. Ron held out his hand, staring dead ahead. Can I see it? The boy was justifiably uneasy with the request and eased into opposition. Are you going to use it on me? Can I please see it, Alan Curtis? Alan Curtis spoke his truth. I have an aching suspicion that you're going to use it on me. Tammy chimed in, absent, braless. No, he's going to use it on me. And the boy finally understood what was going on. Ouch. The clerk only shrugged, indifferent and over it. She's experienced worse. After Ron got tased by an armed civilian at the store for pepper spray and that cashier, it was apparent things had gotten out of hand, and we as a gang needed to cool down. It was unanimously decided that we would have a peaceful night in. It was voted 2-1 that Ron and I would harass Alan to hear some of his really weird slam poetry. Almost instantly insecure and overprotective of his work, Alan Curtis lectured that slam poetry was something that he did in the privacy of his own room. It was a sacred art, this, that, and all that other kind of shit. What? I laughed and snorted rhetorically before Ron chimed in. Yeah, privacy of your own room, right. Sarcastic scoff. What's that supposed to mean? The boy was getting hot. It means I murdered your door like not that long ago. It means that the sheet you use for privacy shields you about as much as these worn-out sweats shield you guys from my bonnier when it's ready for war. We could see everything, Alan Curtis, and what's more is that we post any noteworthy happenings to online forums like daily. That's what that's supposed to mean. Ya heard? Naturally, high fives were exchanged. He earned every bit of that one. He continued with the calf now wounded. Local perverts have read and seen photos of all the dirty, sinful things that you do. Alan Curtis was stunned. It was hilarious. I tried to reason with the unreasonable. What do you expect? Everything you do we can see, and everything that you do is stupid and worthy of ridicule. Everything. Ron said it with some disgust and big eyes for emphasis, followed by a slight shudder. I continued. You put yourself on display. If you've done it, we've seen it, heard it, or smelled it 1,000 times. Then why do you need to hear my slam poetry? You've obviously heard it and felt it 1,000 times. The idiot clutched his chest. Deep subject matter elicited a deep emotional response. Out of fucking nowhere, seriously like nowhere, Ron just snapped. I'm gonna fuck you up, Alan Curtis. Start bearing your soul. Alan was set to lose it, and I had had enough. I threw in the towel before things escalated further. Alan Curtis, enough. Just go sit down and quit being a pest. We all piled onto the couch, trying to create more room than there was. Alan whined and yelped loudly. Ow, your elbow's in my side. You're pinching my side. Stop. Stop. Run. Stop. He increased the volume of his screaming with each plea. Finally, he was just screeching inaudible bursts and sobbing, and I couldn't deal with it anymore. Alan Curtis, God damn it! He's pinching me, Brutus. He's pinching me. I can hear you, Alan. I can hear you. You're screaming like an animal. Everyone can hear you. I'm going to have bruises. I have sensitive skin. Directing his attention at Ron, Alan unloaded. This is all just some game to you, isn't it? This is my life. The fattest looked stunned by Alan's tone and held up his hands as if to claim innocence. He called out to the judges. Brutus? The matter was open and shut. Alan? He was not about to go quietly. He was pinching me last night too, Brutus, in his sleep. I'm starting to think CSP isn't even a real condition. I was hoping to avoid this. CSP? Alan and Ron responded in unison, Ron's tone ashamed. Chronic sleep pinches. Sleep pinches. I was officially entangled. Who pinches in their goddamn sleep? Alan Curtis demanded to know. This was going to spiral out of control quickly without supervision. That's enough, seriously. Ron, stop. Alan, stop. Stop complaining. You can cry all you want if he draws blood, but until then, just defend yourself. There was a long silence, perhaps some mindful consideration. No, obviously not. Ron was plotting, waiting for his moment to strike. Without warning, he began violently pulling Alan's hair, who silently mouthed yelps of agony. Grabbing Ron's arm and pinching it as hard as he could, just catching the high-hanging fat of the triceps nearing the armpit, Alan attacked the forearm with bites like a feral coon several times and all in the same general spot. Looking away, Ron bit his fist and did his best to resist tears. Suddenly, he shot his hand out to call a truce with Alan Curtis. Enough was enough. "Jesus H. Christ, will you two knock it off?" I shouted at the roof, because looking at one of them while yelling would just have opened the floodgates and I wouldn't have stopped. I have so much to yell at my idiot roommates, but will not. Yelling solves nothing, and all the bullshit this group lives and breathes is toxic and eats away. We're a toxic group. Trashy people do trashy things. There, I feel better about my part in all of this. And this guy gets on me for yelling. Alan mad-dogged me. I felt nothing. Ron had nothing to contribute, but did anyways. Rude, Brutus, rudus, if you will. There was an unspoken sense of incredulous revulsion in my actions floating just above our heads in the room. What was happening? "You've got to be kidding me." Alan fired back in typical fashion, making things much worse. "If I wanted this kind of treatment, I would have admitted to you that I was the one who wore your corduroys to the fair, filling them with shit and blood and staining them with vomit and more. Now I feel disgust and disbelief. What the hell is wrong with you?" Rondellas got in on the action. "Yeah, and he wouldn't have blamed me for it. I still can't believe you bought that crock of horse shit, by the way. Seriously." Alan blew a dismissive raspberry and was suddenly chewing gum. "Where did he get that? I'm the only one here who has gum." Rondellas brought me back to our current conversation, further solidifying the facts. Alan had pulled a fast one on me, and I was dumb for believing Ron to be the wearer, shitter, vomiter, etc. of the corduroy pants. I mean, look at me, Brutus. I'm a fucking minivan. It's just... God. Laughing in disbelief, he grabbed and potted his massive belly to prove his point. "Straight walrus, Brutus. You're an idiot." Alan was always there for me. "You've got to get a grip. There's no way I'm getting in those things now or ever." "Geez, okay, I'm sorry. I did not like being spoken to with resolve. On top of that, the idiots boxed me out. I could feel myself being removed from the room in every way except physically. Physically, I was still very much there to feel pain and hurt as a man does. Groveling is not my thing. I'm okay at it, but it's not for me. You pick your battles, or you lose a lot. I have lost most of the battles in my life. Most of the trivial bullshit. It's because I never took my own advice. Commit to the long con and adhere to the big picture. Grovel. Come on, guys. Seriously, I'm sorry. Are we cool?" Pointing to himself and Ron, Alan set the record straight. We're cool." I mocked his stupidity. You are assholes. I'm done apologizing." Rondellas walked out of the room without saying a word. Again, I failed to take my own advice. Disregarding the issue in its entirety should do the trick. I'm going to Jared's. Alan Curtis, for many reasons, didn't trust me as far as he can throw me. His words. "Yeah, I'm going to hang out with someone from my fantasy friend roster as well." Again, Alan Curtis, Jared is a real person, and I don't have a fantasy friend roster. "Drop the guy, Brutus. He's a grade A dud." "What do you have against Jared? Aside from the fact that he's the world's biggest loser, nothing." "You never even talked to him." "Yeah, I try not to associate with those types. The loser types." "Stop it. Give the guy a break. I'll break his bones. Just stop. You're as weak as a child. You've got nothing. No muscle mass." Rondellas reappeared holding a VHS and asked, "You guys want to see something very erotic?" He decided it was a good time to premiere his sex tape. I can't begin to express the confusion I felt. Lumides Did You Imagine played as images of Ron in compromising positions appeared on the screen. In one, he was wearing a strap-on with his mangled, much less normal-looking penis uncomfortably erect, pinched between the sex toy and the leather strap. Furries, femdoms, furry femdom, glitter on all four cheeks, you name it. This photo shoot was a labor of love and dedication. A lot of work went into it. Even the production showed serious effort, something Ron has never been big on. Transitions were accompanied by digital wipes, star showers, the works. It was all very tasteful stuff. I watched, genuinely impressed with what Ron had put together. Never mind the content. Please, for the love of God, never mind the content. But Alan wasn't having it. "Wait. Did you add all that music and all that sophisticated ambience to the video, or?" Ron suddenly seemed uneasy. "What? No, it just comes like that. On this digital video software I have." I butted in. "But this is on VHS. Alan Curtis pointed at me, nodding in agreement. Yeah, this isn't digital. Ron stood and stared, realizing that he was surrounded. He put his hand to his hip and leaned against it like a sassy broad. He was ready for an endurance contest. This is not how I am spending the rest of my day. Alan Curtis, I could drop you off at the foot of the mountains if you'd like. Jared lives up in the hills. Alan was thrilled. That would be great. I haven't done that in years. Not since Dimitri used to take me. I had never heard him use that name and asked, who? My brother, Dimitri. Whoa. I don't even want to entertain the notion that there's another one of you monsters running around out there. Alan looked down. It took a moment to respond. No, he's not running anywhere. He died. Thank God. To wrap up the sex tape story, though, our instant ridicule of it must have thrown Ron into a really nasty headspace. He stared through the wall, body slowly, gently swaying, the TV's glow shining a cool dim blue off his face. Tonight, I feed. It was clear that he was oblivious to our presence. Discomfort and confusion in abundance. Ron? He snapped out of it very quickly and acted like he wasn't just plotting something terrible. Did you catch any of that? I asked. He was flushed and disoriented. His eyes darted wildly, and his breathing was more labored than usual. Yeah, it was crazy. Lies. I closed in. You have no idea what's going on, do you? There was a long delay. What? Alan took the more direct route. Are you going to kill and eat somebody tonight? Heavy breathing and dilated pupils. What? I'm not sure what substance or cocktail of substances Ron added to his daily routine, but he'd just get lost looking off into nothing. One day he fell into a tune-out session, and I put a bowl of cereal on his head just to see if he'd stir while I went to the store. Alan took my surveillance experiment as some sort of stone-stacking challenge, however, and when I got back with my groceries, there were additional bowls, oven mitts, and some silverware piled atop the motionless mound. I couldn't imagine who would do this. The initials AMFC tagged across Ron's catatonic face probably meant nothing. The pretzel sticks coming out of his nose, ears, and mouth probably meant nothing as well. We'd reached daily occurrence territory. I'd find myself staring through the back of his head with supreme revulsion as he sat half on me, wasted, oblivious. The couch had plenty of room, yet I found myself smashed against the arm while Ron stared off into space, hands gently rubbing his knees. Why don't you go see what Alan Curtis is doing? He'd be startled back into coherency. Huh? Go find Alan Curtis. Brutus, when the hell did you get here? Are you fucking kidding me? I was here. You came and sat next to me, Ron. You came and sat on me, actually. Disregarded. Yeah, I was just watching some TV. Yeah, I know. Will you please go find Alan Curtis? I just want to get the feeling back in my leg. Yeah, sure thing. Where is that bovine eyesore? A little hazy, a little jarred, he'd get to his feet and stretch until something popped violently. He let out this horrible sexual moan that I hear even when he's not doing it. I was just happy to have him off of me, though things were anything but good. My guess is he's probably scrubbing his crotch in my kitchen sink. He's been doing that a lot lately. Ron had a good chuckle. What a free spirit, so untethered. He's going to owe me a bottle of dish soap. That stuff isn't free, and he's burning through it like crazy. Rondellis washed his hands of the situation, called me Chief, and told me to take my concerns to the boy. Not Big Daddy, not now, not ever. I fought to maintain a level head. Here's the thing, I tried taking it up with him, and all he said was, don't hate. What the hell does that even mean? I mean, I know what those words mean, but not in that context. From under his breath, I heard D-Cups mutter, why am I not surprised? All I could offer was what I assumed to be a confused expression before he quickly changed the subject. Oh, I took that fat little pig to the tumble jungle today. There's your first mistake. I wasn't being sarcastic or cute. Rondellis took my response to be, though, and let out a garlicky sigh. Tell me about it. I will, and so will her staff. They've got a rap sheet on that freak dating back to '01. He didn't seem to mind what I had said and kind of just breezed past it. Like, yeah, well, we walk in and he tells me, my name is Cobra Smothers. I say, what in God's name are you talking about, Alan Curtis? Naturally. And he says, well, we're here. My name is Cobra Smothers. I knew I fucked the bed then and there. So he spits on some kid, a bunch of kids. He jumped on some poor kid, like on him, on his head. The kid stopped breathing. Jesus Christ. They got him breathing again. Oh, good. Ron's outlook was grim. Well, not really. He kept falling over and he shit himself. I think homeboy's down for the count. It's just a matter of time. I didn't say anything. That fat rodent is just putrid to the core. Oh, and here's the worst part. I could feel my government issue room and board slipping away, and it made me sick. Now, he was getting locked up, or more likely institutionalized for this, for sure. Our friend deliberately giving a child brain damage wasn't the worst part. Ron was really upset by this point, all worked up, huffy and puffy, hair stuck to his forehead, sweat, the whole dirty thing. No, get this. We both got eliminated from activities privileges. Can you believe that? There was a pause. I took a deep breath and engaged. Both? Why were you even involved? Why was he? He hurts these kids. He doesn't understand the disparity in strength. Brutus, I was at the bottom of the dog pile. There was a foot in my mouth. I asked him to stop. Please stop. Brutus, I winced. Please stop. He licked his lips loudly and with much saliva. Stop.